the illustrious Military Fighting Club, MFC. The culmination of 5 years of grueling trials, relentless training, and intense rivalry brought Kodo and Ruta to the grand finale at the illustrious Military Fighting Club, MFC. This was no ordinary arena. It was the revered battleground where the most elite fighters of the primate civilization clashed, their battles etched into the memories of millions who watched from every corner of the world. The MFC was not just a stage for combat, it was a theater of legends, where reputations were forged and destinies decided. From the moment the competition began, the MFC had captured the imagination of spectators worldwide. Each match was broadcast live, the electrifying displays of martial prowess and strategic brilliance mesmerizing audiences. The fighters were not merely contestants, they were warriors vying for more than just victory. They sought to capture the hearts and admiration of the public, to elevate their status to legendary proportions. Scoring. In the secrecy of the council chamber, the pack members, high-ranking officials, seasoned military leaders, and respected strategists gathered around a large table, their expressions solemn and focused. The scores for each round had been meticulously recorded, but now they needed to be reviewed, verified, and combined to determine the final winner. Kodo and Ruta had both showcased exceptional skill and leadership throughout the competition, each displaying unique strengths and moments of triumph. The committee members understood that the decision they were about to make would have profound implications, not just for the two candidates, but for the entire military structure of their societies. The committee had adopted a rigorous and thorough approach to the scoring process. Every aspect of the competitors' performance was taken into account: their strategic decisions in the political arena, their marksmanship with pistols and rifles, their command abilities in virtual naval battles, and their prowess in martial arts and physical tests. Each round was meticulously designed to assess a specific skill set, with points awarded not only for professional expertise, but also for adaptability, innovation, and leadership under pressure. Exhausted in the arena. As Kodo and Ruta stood exhausted in the arena, the audience waited with bated breath for the announcement. The fight had been fierce and evenly matched, and no one could predict who would emerge as the new admiral. But in a secluded chamber within the MFC, the members of the pack were already tallying the scores. The process was meticulous, with each score and vote carefully reviewed and verified. The final outcome was supposed to be a reflection of merit, of the strength, skill, and leadership each candidate had demonstrated over the grueling 5-year course. Kodo had been a model of discipline and strategic brilliance throughout the competition. His calm, methodical approach had earned him the admiration of his peers and judges alike. Ruta, on the other hand, had fought with ferocity and an unrelenting drive to prove himself superior. Both had their strengths, and both had earned the right to be in this final showdown. But as the scores were calculated, a shocking twist occurred, one that would change the outcome of the competition and the course of their lives. Kodo's performance had earned him 293 points. He had garnered 7 green votes and no red votes, a testament to his consistency and skill. Ruta, with his aggressive style, had accumulated 291 points. He had received 8 green votes, but also a single red vote, which should have subtracted 1 green vote from his total. By all rights, the victory should have been Kodo's. But someone within the pack had other plans. A mysterious hand, motivated by reasons unknown, had stolen Ruta's red vote. The theft was subtle, unnoticed by the other committee members. The announcement. The crowd erupted in applause as Admiral Zakuza, the respected figurehead of the pack, ascended the stage to announce the winner. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the excitement and anticipation of the thousands who had gathered to witness the culmination of this epic contest. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Zakuza began, his voice commanding the attention of everyone in the arena. We have reached the end of a long and grueling journey. Both of these warriors have shown extraordinary strength, skill, and leadership. They have proven themselves to be among the best our civilization has to offer. But there can be only one admiral. The arena fell silent as the admiral paused, drawing out the moment. Then, with a voice filled with gravitas, he delivered the final verdict. The title of admiral goes to Ruta. The name echoed through the vast space, and for a moment, there was a stunned silence. Then, the crowd erupted into cheers, the noise swelling into a thunderous roar that shook the very foundations of the arena. Ruda had done it. He had claimed the title of Admiral, and the audience celebrated his victory with unbridled enthusiasm. But as Ruda basked in the adulation, his face reflecting a mix of pride and triumph, Kodo stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. The announcement hit him like a physical blow, a confusing mix of disbelief, disappointment, and a gnawing sense of defeat washing over him. How could this be? He had fought so hard, trained for so long, and yet, in the end, victory had slipped through his fingers like sand. Kodo's bitterness. For Kodo, the moment was surreal, like a nightmare from which he couldn't wake. He had always believed in the fairness of the process and the idea that the best would rise to the top based on their merit. But now, that belief was shattered. Kodo's eyes scanned the arena, taking in the faces of the spectators who had cheered for him, who had believed in him. But now, their cheers were for Ruda. The taste of defeat was bitter, but Kodo forced himself to stand tall, to show no outward sign of the turmoil roiling within him. He knew that he could not allow this setback to break him. Instead, it would strengthen his resolve to prove himself, to show that he was the true leader. As Kodo struggled to reconcile the bitterness of defeat with his burning desire for redemption, Ruda approached him, his expression hardening as he drew closer. The victorious warrior now stood before Kodo, his presence a reminder of the battle they had fought and the rivalry that had only intensified with the outcome. "I will tear you to pieces," Ruda declared, his voice laced with cold determination. There was no gloating, no joy in his words, only a promise of future confrontations, of battles that would continue until one of them was truly defeated. The rivalry between them had reached a new level, one that would not be resolved by this single victory. Kodo met Ruda's gaze, his eyes reflecting a mixture of anger, pain, and determination. The loss stung deeply, but it had not broken him. If anything, it had only solidified his resolve. The rivalry between them would not end here, in this arena. It would continue, and Kodo vowed that the next time they met, the outcome would be different. The future unfolds. The spotlight remained on Ruda as he accepted the accolades of the crowd, but Kodo's thoughts were already turning to the future. He knew that the path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and obstacles that he would have to overcome. But he was ready. The defeat had taught him a valuable lesson, that the world was not always fair, and that sometimes one had to fight not just the battle in front of them, but the unseen forces that sought to undermine them. As the night wore on, the celebrations continued, but for Kodo, the time for reflection had come. The rivalry with Ruda had been intensified, but it had also revealed something deeper within him, a strength that he had not fully realized until now. He had faced adversity, and though he had been denied victory, he knew that he had the power to shape his own destiny. Kodo left the arena with a heavy heart, but also with a renewed sense of purpose. The title of Admiral had been snatched away, but it was not the end of his journey. He would continue to fight, to prove himself, and to claim the title that he knew he deserved. The battle was far from over, and Kodo was determined to rise again. As he walked away from the arena, the cheers for Ruda fading into the background, Kodo felt a calm resolve settle over him. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: his rivalry with Ruda would continue, and the next time they faced each other, it would be a battle for the ages, one that would echo through the annals of primate history. The stage had been set for a future confrontation, a clash of titans that would test the limits of their strength, their will, and their determination. And when that day came, Kodo would be ready. The solitary celebration. Major General Hurist sat alone in the opulent confines of his living room, the soft, amber glow of lamplight casting flickering shadows across the walls. The luxury of his surroundings, with their plush velvet drapes and polished mahogany furniture, seemed almost to mock the storm of emotions swirling within him. His fingers traced the rim of a crystal wine glass, the rich aroma of aged wine wafting through the air as he indulged in a moment of solitary celebration. The news of his son Ruda's victory in the prestigious competition had been the final note in a symphony of triumph that resonated deep within the chambers of his heart. It was a moment he had long awaited, a crowning achievement that symbolized not just Ruta's prowess, but also the realization of a dream, the fulfillment of a legacy that spanned generations. For Major General Hurus, Ruta's ascent was not merely a win, it was a validation of everything he had worked toward, both as a father and as a military leader. Yet, as he savored the sweet taste of success, a faint, almost imperceptible smile played upon his lips. It was a mask, hiding the deeper currents of emotion that surged within him, a facade that concealed the truth of what lay beneath. Behind the rigid exterior of military excellence and the devoted persona of a proud father, Major General Hurus harbored a secret, a shadowy truth that lurked in the recesses of his conscience. In the hushed stillness of the room, with only the soft crackle of the fireplace to break the silence, Hurus whispered to himself, the words barely audible. I will take all these sins and carry them with me to the grave. No one will ever know my secret. The weight of his confession hung heavy in the air, lingering like a specter over the opulent room. It was a solemn vow, uttered in the solitude of his sanctuary, a vow that spoke of a darkness that few could imagine. The secret burden. But what secret could a respected general like Hurus possibly harbor? Why would a man of his stature, celebrated and revered, feel the need for such secrecy? The answer lay buried deep in the labyrinth of his past, hidden behind the accolades and honors that decorated his career. It was a secret forged in the crucible of ambition and power, one that had shaped his life and the lives of those around him in ways he could never fully acknowledge. As Major General Hurus reclined in his armchair, memories of a bygone era flooded his mind. He recalled the clandestine meetings in dimly lit rooms, where power was brokered in whispers, and alliances were formed not out of friendship, but necessity. He remembered the whispered promises exchanged with those who could elevate him, and the unspoken sacrifices made to ascend the ranks of the military. Hurus had always been driven, a man with a hunger for power and a thirst for recognition. He had risen through the ranks with a ferocity that earned him respect and fear in equal measure. But with power came responsibility, and with responsibility came compromise. The secret police force under his command had been more than just a tool of protection. It had become a weapon, a means to maintain order, to quell dissent, and to shape the course of events to his advantage. For years, Hurus had wielded this power with ruthless efficiency, ensuring that his path to success was unimpeded. He had used the secret police to silence those who questioned his authority, to manipulate outcomes that might otherwise have posed a threat to his ambitions. But with each act of coercion, each calculated decision to protect his own interests, the burden of his secret grew heavier. Now, as he sat alone in his living room, that burden threatened to consume him from within. The secret he guarded was a fragile thread, woven into the fabric of his existence, binding him to a past he could never escape. It was a thread that connected him to the very foundations of his power, a thread that, if pulled, could unravel everything he had built. In the dim light of his study, Major General Hurus confronted the specter of his own conscience. The faces of those he had wronged flickered in the shadows, the colleagues he had betrayed, the subordinates he had coerced, the innocents who had been caught in the crossfire of his ambition. The whispers of secrecy echoed in the recesses of his mind, urging him to confront the shadows that lingered at the edges of his consciousness. For years, he had kept his secret hidden, buried beneath layers of deception and half-truths. But as his son basked in the glory of victory, Major General Hurus knew that the time for reckoning was fast approaching. The shadow of his past loomed large, and with each passing day, the weight of his guilt grew more oppressive. A legacy of power. The victory of Ruta was not just a personal triumph for Hurus, it was the continuation of a legacy. He had groomed his son for greatness, instilling in him the values of strength, discipline, and unyielding resolve. Ruta's success was a reflection of Hurus's own ambition, a testament to the legacy he had sought to create, a legacy built on the foundations of power and control. But as proud as he was of his son's achievements, Hurus could not escape the creeping fear that his own sins would one day come to light. The victories won in the shadows had a way of casting long shadows of their own, and Hurus knew that the secrets he harbored could easily become the seeds of his undoing. He had always known the risks of the path he had chosen. The clandestine dealings, the covert operations, the manipulation of events to ensure his rise, they were all part of the game he had played to secure his position. But as with all games of power, the stakes were high, and the cost of failure was absolute. Heuris's mind drifted back to the pivotal moments that had shaped his rise. The alliances he had forged, the promises he had made, each decision had been calculated, each move carefully planned to ensure his ascent. But in the pursuit of power, he had made enemies, and those enemies had not forgotten. Even now, as he celebrated his son's victory, Heuris knew that there were those who would seek to bring him down. The web of intrigue that surrounded him was complex, and the line between ally and adversary was often blurred. He had survived by staying one step ahead, by anticipating threats and neutralizing them before they could strike. But the shadow of his past loomed large, and Heuris knew that he could not outrun it forever. A heavy heart. As the night stretched on, Major General Heuris remained ensnared in the labyrinth of his own secrets, haunted by the ghosts of the past and the uncertainty of the future. The celebration outside continued, oblivious to the turmoil that raged within the confines of his mind. Ruta's victory was being hailed as a triumph, a symbol of the strength and resilience of their lineage. But for Heuris, the moment was bittersweet. He lifted the crystal glass to his lips, taking a long sip of the aged wine. The rich, velvety liquid flowed over his tongue, a momentary distraction from the storm of emotions swirling within him. But the taste of the wine could not drown out the whispers of his conscience, nor could it erase the memories of the sins he had committed in the pursuit of power. Heuris knew that he was not the man the world believed him to be. Behind the facade of the respected general, the devoted father, was a man who had made choices that had led to the destruction of lives, to the manipulation of events, to the creation of a legacy built on a foundation of secrets and lies. He had done what he believed was necessary to secure his position, to protect his family, to ensure that his son would inherit a legacy of power. But at what cost? The question gnawed at him, a persistent reminder of the moral compromises he had made. In the solitude of his opulent living room, Major General Heuris pondered the implications of his clandestine dealings. The webs of intrigue he had woven now threatened to ensnare him, to pull him down into the very shadows he had so carefully navigated. He had lived his life on a razor's edge, always aware that one misstep could lead to his downfall. As the weight of his guilt pressed down upon him, Heuris whispered once more into the silence of the room, "I will take all these sins and carry them with me to the grave." It was a vow, a promise to himself that no one would ever know the truth of what he had done. But as he spoke the words, he could not shake the feeling that the truth had a way of coming to light, that the shadows he had cast would one day catch up to him. The reckoning to come. The night stretched on, the quiet punctuated only by the occasional crackle of the fire and the distant sounds of celebration from outside. Major General Heuris remained in his chair, lost in the labyrinth of his thoughts. The victory of his son was a moment of triumph, but it was also a reminder of the fragile nature of power, of the delicate balance that must be maintained to keep the past buried. He had taught Ruta everything he knew about power, about control, about the sacrifices necessary to achieve greatness. But there were some lessons he had kept to himself, secrets that he had vowed to protect at all costs. As Ruta basked in the glory of his victory, Heuris could only hope that the sins of the father would not be visited upon the son.